Okay. Hello, everyone, dear guests. Good morning and welcome to the conference of Ethics by Design, Responsible Development of Technology in the ESG Ecosystem. On behalf of the conference organizing committee, I would like to express my great joy that we managed to gather today such outstanding specialists from many fields of science. I extend a warm welcome to the members of the scientific committee. And also we welcome very much partners of the conference, the Faculty of Philosophy, University of Warsaw, and the Center for Ethics of Technology at Humanities Institutes. Thank you for your collaboration and making this event possible. We also would like to thanks to our media partner, the Academic Forum. So all of the participants joining us today online, welcome. And now we are start the first panel of the conference. We have a stimulating agenda today, had from 10 to 11:30 a plenary session. So we will be able to listen our key speakers. And for our speakers, just a few instructions. 10 minutes presentation duration. Please keep respect this time. And after all speakers, we will have question and answer sessions. To all participants of the conference can ask a question on the chat and also by raising their hands. And first, I would like to ask our Deputy Director of Research of Łukasiewicz Institute of Organization and Management in Industry to speak first. Professor Karol Dobrzeniecki, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So as a deputy, as you said, director...
I think we have some problems. Oh, yeah, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Of course, great. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you at the Ethics by Design conference. Let me say a few words about our institute. The institute's core mission is to provide specialized expertise in understanding how the adoption and new technological influences decision-making in public administration, businesses, and among individuals. Our ultimate goal is to ensure that society and economy can fully harness the advantages brought by technological advancements while also minimizing potential risks. Today, we gather at this conference to focus on a highly significant topic, the ethical advancement of technology within the framework of environmental, social, and governance principles, so-called ESG. This conference is a great chance for us to talk about this, to find ways to make technology better while keeping ethical values in mind. We have a diverse group of experts here, and together, I'm pretty sure we can come up with new ideas to deal with in the challenges we face. I encourage you to take part in our discussions, ask questions, and meet others who share your interests. Our work can shape the future of technology and how it's used in an ethical and responsible way. I also want to remark that the European approach to digital innovation places a strong emphasis on responsible design, implementation, and use of smart technologies. So the ethics by design is a method that helps turn big ethical and legal ideas into practical steps in the technology design process. It is a useful tool for both technology experts and designers to ensure that ethical and legal rules are followed throughout technology development. As a lawyer, I'm pretty stick to this idea. Thanks you for being here and look forward to some great discussions and ideas during the conference. Welcome to the Ethics by Design conference, and let's work together to make technology better for everyone. Now I'd like to skip to the substantial part of my presentation, of my so-called lecture. So the subject is, of course, the neutrality, principle of technological neutrality in law. Not making it very comprehensive, very complicated, I like to give you some general overview, give you some ideas, some remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to discuss a concept that has a far-reaching implications in the world of technology and law, so-called technological neutrality. Technological neutrality essentially means that individuals and organizations have the freedom to choose the technology that best suits their needs and goals. It's about enabling development, acquisition, use, and commercialization of technology without being locked into specific information or data dependencies. At the user level, this principle ensures that products and services are accessible through various means, platforms, or operating systems. It means that a company shouldn't force you to buy a particular mobile device just to use it, use its service. This concept is deeply rooted in the values of freedom for citizens and consumers, allowing them to choose how they access and use products and services without being tethered to specific technology or device. In the past, regulations in Europe were often tied to the specific technologies being used. This created barriers that hindered competition among different services that used those technologies. However, the digital revolution of the past 2 decades has seen different technologies converging, enabling the same services to be delivered through the network regulated in various ways. This shift raised concerns that traditional regulations might reintroduce barriers, slowing down technological process. There's always the tension between the technological development and the legal development. As competition intensifies and technology evolves rapidly, the need for regulations that don't favor any particular technology becomes increasingly important. This is why this is what means what meant by technologically neutral regulation. This principle is not just a theoretical concept, but has already been put into practice by the European Union. In 1999, the European Commission used technological neutrality as a regulatory principle, marking a precedent in the legislative field. The principle was further consolidated with directive from 2009/140 EC, quite well-known directive for European lawyers, amending directives on the common regulatory framework for electronic communications networks and services. In November 2011, the European Parliament passed a resolution on the open internet and net neutrality in Europe. This resolution was a crucial reminder of the importance of technological neutrality and its regulation. The wording coming from the resolution was clear. In the absence of such regulation, the internet could become overloaded with data, resulting in disruption and services blockades, which might break the principle of net neutrality. Net neutrality is a fundamental concept that guarantees equal and impartial access to the internet for all users. A key characteristic of technological neutrality is its ability to adapt to future changes. in a swiftly evolving market where updates and enhancement are frequent, this flexibility is crucial. Why avoiding dependence on a specific device or operating systems, technological neutrality guarantees that systems will remain functional even when they upgrade your operating system or switch to the different workstation. To sum it up, technological neutrality isn't just an idea. It's a fundamental principle that supports our ability to select and use the technologies and services that suit us. It also encourages innovation and competition. This principle has already left its mark in European legislation and remains a guiding light in our commitment to maintaining an open, unrestricted, and innovative digital environment for everyone. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you very much for the first speak. And now I will ask next speaker, Professor Paweł Łuków from University of Warsaw.
Good morning. Okay.
Please wait a minute, we will share your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Okay, can I start now?
Yes, please. Floor is yours.
So you can see the talk I want to make now is fairly straightforward. I want to make a couple of remarks, not so much on the system of research ethics review, but rather on the way I would suggest, should think about that system. In other words, I would like to offer some, hopefully, new perspective on the way we should think or need to think about the ethics by design idea and the research ethics review process. Could you, next slide, please? So as we all know, there is a number of misconceptions regarding the process and the idea of ethics by design and or related to it. Many researchers, as we know, now there are fewer of them, but it used to be the case in the past quite often. Many researchers feel that ethics standards are an obstacle, that research would go further, that new discoveries could be made more quickly if it was not the case that there were so many ethics standards that sort of are somehow in the way. The ethicist then is seen as a kind of troublemaker, or sometimes as a police person, someone who is policing the researchers. So with these ideas, ethics review is seen as an unnecessary bureaucratic process in which ethics principles and standards are supposed to be applied in a more or less, or rather more rigid way. This, of course, is a caricature of the process and of the relation between ethics and research. But this is something that I think many of us, especially those of us who teach, we can observe when we, for example, teach PhD candidates. Mostly it applies to natural sciences. And oftentimes, during such courses, I start with sort of mentioning some of those misconceptions and then I try to convince them that if any of those misconceptions, if they share any of those misconceptions, then the job, my job, is to make sure that that they get rid of them. And my thinking is, how can we do it? How can you think about how can we make that ethical thinking or ethics standards that they shape the very process of research design and execution? And so here I want to suggest that the key reason, or one of the key reasons, might be that we think about ethics standards and principles as something as being applied, and I'm stressing the word applied, to particular plans, designs, and so on, or actions. And instead, I think we should think more about the ethics standards as a sort of traffic code in research design and project execution, rather than as something which is a set of rules, standards, principles, requirements, and so on, against which research projects are being checked. So what I want to suggest is that we think about ethics standards, as I say, as traffic codes, and traffic codes, as we know, need to be learned not so much by reading papers, but by practicing them. Next slide, please. So we all know that ethics review is an instrument of ethics foresight. This is the way I would suggest we should look at them. Thinking about ethics foresight as a core idea of the idea of ethics by design. Basically, the idea is that research standards and principles should be seen as informing the activities of researchers and the research ethics review process. And by saying by informing, I mean it literally, by giving shape to the way we think about different issues. For example, about methodology design, about particular steps in the execution of the process, but also when reviewing a particular project. In this way, I think we are more able to prevent scientific misconduct because, in a way, the standards are in the behavior of researchers and ethics reviewers, rather than something against which things are being changed. It also helps to educate in the area of research integrity and ethics. This perspective, I would suggest, helps promote compliance with research ethics standards and policies. And also, if we take a wider perspective, we might also think about harmonization of research methodologies with ethics standards and policies. And in this way, we can facilitate research by promoting an integrated approach, which, as we know, is opposed to the so-called panic mode, which is the mode in which the ethics part of the research proposal is done in the last second, right before the deadline. That's, of course, is what we want to avoid, because that's one of the good ways to make sure that one gets in trouble. Next slide, please. As we all know, the main goals of institutional ethics review frameworks is basically the maximization of compliance with ethics standards and policies by encouraging an integrated ethics approach. The clear statement of ethics of standards, of course, and expectations is, of course, crucial here. The significance of this context is also something we need to remember, because the institutional context and structure, it helps us articulate the ethics standards. It also helps us to provide structure to the review process and assistance during the execution of a project. It also helps us develop the institutional frameworks, also help us develop policies and procedures. And of course, as is the case with any research review process, the key element here will be the persons who do the job. Next slide, please. And here comes the sort of crucial part of my little talk. What I want to question is to question the idea of application of research ethics standards. It doesn't mean that I don't want ethics standards to work in research design and execution of research projects. What I want to suggest is to change perspective. First of all, the typical perspective is that research ethics standards are codes are formulated by appropriate bodies or organizations, which of course is okay. These standards then are being taught to researchers at different stages of their professional life, starting with, let's say, master's courses or something like this, and then well into the academics or the researcher's career. Researchers then are expected to, and this is the word I want to focus on, to apply the standards to their research design activities and research itself. But what do we mean by speaking about application of ethics standards? Do we mean that we learn what to do in a particular context by deductively deriving instructions for action from general standards? In other words, that we learn that there is a standard, let's say, respect for persons, and from this we derive, in a particular context or situation, we derive a particular instruction about how to provide that respect. I doubt that. I doubt that because it's not clear when are these standards and principles applied, at what stage, what happens, what does it really mean to apply it? Next slide, please. The idea of application of norms or standards and principles to action, I think, cannot be conceptualized in a satisfactory way because it probably misrepresents the role of moral standards in action of real agents, not the agents from ethics textbooks, but of people who are in particular circumstances. What I want to propose instead is to first to see the contrast between the idea of application and the idea of exercise of a principle. I gave the German word here in brackets because I first noticed it in Immanuel Kant's work when he distinguishes between applying a rule and exercising a rule. And what I want to suggest is that ethics standards in research, design, and then execution or conduct, that these ethics standards should be seen as the things that inform actions and thinking and action that are being exercised and not applied to particular situations. In other words, acting on ethics standards is not about applying a rule, but about doing or realizing what they require. It's about doing in terms of thinking and acting, not about applying something to a situation at hand. Which means that this thinking and doing, they are sort of, they happen at the same time together with the moral regulation. So moral affection usually does not consist of deductive derivation of conclusions from norms, but inaction that means that which means that meets the requirements which are expressed in the norms. In other words, further, moral norms are both instruments of judgments, which means that they help us to see what matters morally or ethically in a particular case, and also they work as directives for action. So this is these two roles that we need to focus on when trying to think about how the idea of ethics by design should be taught in terms of action. Next slide, please. So, as a result, I would offer to you to think about research ethics as a kind of traffic code, which means that these are the rules which are integrated within the process of research design and then its conduct. It requires awareness of general research ethics standards. Of course, it relies also on identification of the ethics aspects at the stage of scientific question framing. So it means that at the very beginning, as early as possible, our thinking about the research question is being informed by our awareness of ethical standards. The awareness of specific ethics questions which are related to the particular project is also part of it. Adjustment of methods to the ethics standards which are applied to the specific project. In this way, we are able to sort of modify our project and our thinking and our actions as we go. Practicability is also part of it, because the decisions regarding ethics issues that emerge within a research project, these are the issues that are always very particular. They are always very specific. They occur in particular circumstances. So they are given, so to speak, to us in its uniqueness many times. So that this is the idea. Just to illustrate, those of you who are drivers, when you approach an intersection, you don't remember a rule, let's say the right-hand rule at the intersection. You don't have to recollect it. You just, if you are a sufficiently skilled driver, you simply look to the right to make sure if there is an approaching, to check if there is an approaching car. And you don't have to remember the rules. You don't have to think about them. This is what I said, that rules, standards, inform our thinking and action. They are not applied. Well, from time to time, when you have a difficult problem, you might have to analyze a situation and recall a standard or two. But normally, if you are a well-trained driver, and analogously, I would suggest if you are a well-ethically trained researcher, most of these things are things that inform your thinking, perception, and action. Next slide, please. So this is the idea I want to encourage you to think about. To think about research ethics as, let's say, an ethics as you go, where the ethics standards, they inform the process of study design, when these standards guide research activities and responses to the emerging and unexpected ethics problems. They also inform the thinking of the members of ethics review bodies by providing a kind of lens, so to speak, through which the research project is read. When you are an ethicist on an ethics board, what you typically do, you read the text with particular things in mind. This is what it means that our ethical principles on standards, that they shape our perception and our sensitivity. And then an ethics opinion is not simply a list of requirements, but also a learning tool, because then for researchers, it's an assistance to researchers regarding the way we would expect them to think and act during the project conduct. Next slide, please. And if you look at the research ethics review process in the way I have just proposed, I think you might see also, or somehow reframe the way you think about the role of ethics review experts. First of all, they are members of they are part of the process of interpretation of the research ethics standards within the light of given cases, given methodological solutions, and in particular, sometimes social setting. In this way, the experts and trained researchers can be seen as those who provide instruction to researchers, giving them illustrations or examples of the principle of ethical standards or ethical perspective in action. They can also then provide continuous feedback and engage with researchers in discussions or debate on ethical aspects of a particular project. And in this way, the researcher's perspective, ethically speaking, can become sort of widened, enhanced, because it's also an exercise in using your, let's call it, ethical imagination. You try to think, for example, this is what I do typically when reviewing a research project. What can go wrong here? Not that there must be something that must go wrong, but one needs to think in terms of, as I said earlier, some form of foresight. So in this way, we might, if we think about ethics review process, we might think sort of contribute to a responsive system of research ethics review. We're responsive to the current needs of researchers, and in this way, I feel we might get a very important result. On the one hand, the ethics standards would be integrated in the process of research design and execution, and at the same time, the ethics review process might work as a sort of assistance and support in the process of research execution and design before that. Next slide, please. I think that's the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Łuków, for your speaking. And now I will ask Dr. Ineke Malsch, Director of Malsch Technology Evaluation. Dr. Malsch, the floor is yours.
Yes, so I hope you can also hear me.
Yes, everything is okay. Please try to. Yeah, okay.
Can you see the full
Now
screen?
is okay.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me to speak to this conference. I would like to share some practical case studies on ethical impact assessment, especially in the RISC-ON project, where I was the ethics partner. I applied some ethical impact assessment tools to the case of whether or not data on nanosafety of materials should be shared publicly and in what way. So after a brief introduction, I will discuss the methodology we used and also give some short overview of the identified issues which ethical theories were applied and recommendations we drafted. So I am the director of my own company and I'm a consultant on responsible innovation for sustainable development. I have a first degree in physics and a PhD in philosophy on ethics and nanotechnology. So if you look at sharing nanosafety data, that's a specific case of the discussion of open data. And as you probably know, both governments and researchers are stimulating open access to research data. Sharing nanosafety data is a specific case of data on environmental health and safety issues. In our project RISC-ON, we applied an ethical impact assessment pre-standard, which was developed not by us, but by researchers in a Satori project, and which was published in 2017 as a pre-standard SN workshop agreement on ethical impact assessment. And this procedure consists of 6 steps. So first you screen, if you do a project or have a technology, you screen possible expected ethical issues with a short checklist. Then if you identify significant ethical impact, you draft an ethical impact assessment plan, and then you perform this plan by identifying relevant cases in literature, evaluating the ethical impacts, and then drafting recommendations. And what's important that you also ask an external ethicist to review your whole procedure to sort of benchmark whether your ideas, your own estimates are valid or not. So in RISCON, we applied these more general procedures to the case of nanomaterials, and also we developed online tools to guide a user through this process. Then looking at the discussion of whether or not data from nanosafety testing, like toxicity testing, ethical impact, environmental impacts, but also life cycle analysis, should be shared openly or not. And then we used a sort of general checklist of 9 general categories: health-related issues, privacy issues, liberties, equality, common good, environmental impacts, sustainability, military dual use, and misuse. And as you can see, not all of these categories were relevant, but we did identify some issues related to health, to liberties, equality, and the common good, and to environment and sustainability, and also some misuse by looking at, well, this was our expectation. And we thought that the issues were varying between minor and moderate on a 5-point scale, so that's 0.1 or 2. So it was not very severe issues we thought, but they were serious enough to do a small-scale ethical impact assessment. So depending on the seriousness, you can choose which kind of ethical impact assessment is appropriate. Then we used a more detailed checklist to assess the identified issues in literature in comparable cases. And then, yeah, we came up with an estimate which varied between no issues, minor issues, up to a high relevance of issues related to health inequalities. But of course, this is still our expert estimate, so the estimated strength of each impact is open to discussion. Then the next step is to evaluate, so to apply ethical theories on the identified cases. And then the aim of that is to sort of analyze the issues more in depth, but also to sort of identify trade-offs between different ethical principles or values, and also to come up with a way to balance the trade-offs between different ethical principles and values which are at stake. So in this case, we considered that if nanosafety data is shared openly, this might infringe on intellectual property rights of some researchers. It could also negatively impact social justice, especially for researchers in less resourced institutions or in developing countries. On the other hand, sharing it could benefit strongly the public health. And there are some possible negative issues on dual use. Environmental ethics could be benefited, and on animal ethics could both bring negative and positive impacts. Then the next step is to propose recommendations for remediating the negative issues and improve the benefits. And in this small case study we did, I mainly looked at literature to identify recommendations by other authors for similar cases. So one is trade-off between stimulating public health and protecting social justice. And then Bezuidenhout looked at especially the case of working with researchers in low and middle income countries, so developing countries. And she suggested that it's important to not just look at the choice whether or not to share nanosafety data as such, but to take into account the context more. So to include an expanded understanding of the laboratory equipment and the research feed which were available to the different researchers, and also engage with scientists in low and middle income countries to actually ask them for their views and to help them to improve their chances to compete or to contribute to scientific development in this field. And also to adopt frugal or responsible design principles in the future open data initiatives. Then another recommendation was focusing on the balance between publishing data openly and avoiding the misuse of these data for weapons of mass destruction or bioterrorism. And then Bezuidenhout and Morrison suggest to not just look at the issue as such, but again to focus on everyday practices of laboratory scientists and to see whether there was real concern or whether it was not really a big risk for dual use in the specific case where this research was done. So there's also a recommendation which is more addressed to the management of research organizations where research is done on nanosafety studies. And that is to actually train their researchers in research integrity principles and raise the awareness of these principles and train them. This could help to improve the benefits of publishing nanosafety data and avoiding possible risks. And more focusing specifically on the international collaboration between researchers in the more advanced and in developing countries, and also freelance researchers. There's an international coalition which has developed a global code of conduct for equitable research partnerships based on 4 principles: fairness, respect, care, and honesty. And they give very concrete guidelines for how to ensure that these 4 principles are respected in practical research projects with these researchers. So this could be a very practical way to ensure that publishing data of nanosafety studies where also researchers in developing countries were involved is also in their own interest and not only in the interest of other stakeholders. Then if you focus specifically on some testing with some nanosafety testing where animal tests were used, of course, researchers using animal tests are trained to comply with the 3 Rs, reducing the number of tests, refining the testing procedures, and replacing animal testing with other methods, especially in vitro testing. Because of nanosafety data availability, it will become more and more possible to use also in silico, so modeling of the impacts of nanomaterials on, for instance, human bodies or on the environment. This can be a new interpretation of this 3R principle. Thank you for your attention. It's not very long, 10 minutes, but I hope I have helped you to understand what we have been doing and to start a discussion about it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Malsch. After all speakers, and so we will have time for question and answer sessions. So now I can encourage all participants to write a question on the chat for our conference. And now I will ask Professor Piera Di Martino from University of Chieti and Pescara.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, everything is okay.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank the organizer committee to having invited me to this interesting conference. Actually, I'm not a lawyer or philosopher, as many of you. I'm a simple researcher in chemistry, and I would like to talk about my experience and the impact that my experience of researchers in nanomedicine can have on ethics. Actually, the nanotechnology is a very wide area of applications in many different fields of our daily life, from nano devices for different fields to food industry, nanomedicine, textile industry, bioengineering, clean energy, nanofertilizers, optical engineering, and so on. So we expect that all these fields will leave a very important, significant economic growth in the next years, and that they will impact on the job creation in the world, and in particular in Europe. And according to several researchers, there are 4 generations for nano science. Actually, at the present, we are living the first and the second generation. The first generation, starting in the 18 of the previous years, and it mainly concerns of material science with properties being able to interact with substrata, with different substrata in a passive way. I can recall, for example, some nanostructures used in medicine for the delivery in the body of drugs. Now we are moving toward the second generation, toward the active nanostructures. I will give you some few examples later on. And actually, it refers to the ability of drugs to be targeted to specific organs in order to treat specific diseases, in order to reduce the toxicity of these drugs. We are not yet in the third and the fourth generation of nanotechnologies. The third one is approaching, and it refers mainly to nanosystem for nanorobotics. And the fourth generation, it refers to molecular nanosystem, able, for example, to control the growth of artificial organs. In the future, we can expect that micro nanochips can assist patients in the regeneration of tissues, organs, and so on. Actually, the impact of all these aspects, as also explained by the previous speakers, is enormous. And all these nanosciences can affect our health, environment, social, and of course ethical issues. So that there is the necessity to produce, to proceed by a design while developing nanomaterials. So the approach is a safe by design, considering all the possible adverse effects on health, environment, and safety, for example, considering that nanomaterials can also be toxic for humans or other species, for example. There are no still complete evidences, for example, about the toxicity when we administer a nanomaterial into the body, for example. And we also must be aware of the possible impact on the environment of our nanomaterials, for example. There are many studies about the presence of several nanomaterials released on the marine environment, for example, and toxicity for fish or other forms of life in the marine compartment. Also, for example, risk of explosion. The impact on the social and ethical issue is enormous. The economic impact is big and as information, but also the dual use of this research in nanomaterials for example, military uses. This is what's really important, the awareness of the public on nanotechnologies. And it is very important to establish a dialogue between stakeholders and the publics in order to resolving conflict, improving trust in institutions, informing people. For example, if we look at the debate after the marketing of vaccines against COVID and the response of some populations against achievement. This is why it is very important that the European Union can try to regulate issues, for example, for product affecting the daily life of consumers. The regulation of cosmetics developed try to respond to the impact of nanomaterials used in cosmetics, and actually all the issues are not still solved. In this slide, very briefly, I would like to show you the milestones for the development of nanomedicine, starting from liposomes. In the 1964, the first structure discovered of nanoparticles, and reaching the 1995 for the first liposome approved by FDA for therapy in humans, the Doxil, up to the part in green that refers to the second generation that are nanoparticles able to be delivered exactly into specific compartment and specific tissue to treat cancers, for example. They are still on clinical trials, but we expect that in the future we'll have important results of that. I would like to leave you launching a provocation about the green goo. Do you know that green goo is the nightmarish scenario of nanotechnology. This term has been coined by an engineer and Eric Drexler, and according to this great guru, nanotechnologies were able to produce self-replicating nanorobots, destroying biosphere, and so on. I guess that there is a common thread in research in every field, and it is the impact that our actions as a researcher have on our colleagues, on our neighbors, society, environment, and on the economy. Thank you, and I leave to you my email address.
Thank you very much, Professor. And now I will ask our last speaker in the first session, Dr. Maciej Chojnowski from the Center for Ethics of Technology at Humanities Institute. The floor is yours.
Hello. Thank you very much, Eva, for the introduction. Let me now share my screen with you. Just a second. I hope it will work. And now,
yeah, okay.
And can you see the slides now?
Yes, everything is okay.
Sure, great. Okay, thanks a lot. It's a great pleasure and privilege to represent Center for Ethics of Technology today during the conference, and I also grateful and also privileged to co-organize, that we can co-organize this event with Ormasz Łukasiewicz and with the Faculty of Philosophy at the University of Warsaw. Great, so without further ado, the title of my talk is Well-Being Quantified, and you can ask why. That's because our main goal, our main focus at SET is ethics operationalization, which means that we are interested mostly in putting AI ethics principles, sometimes quite abstract, high-level principles and requirements into practice. And as it happens, well-being is one of the main goals of sustainable development goals, one of the main themes in today's discourse on sustainability, but also one of the key requirements included in the EU and the OECD guidelines on trustworthy AI. On the bottom, you can see a gray box and 7 requirements from the trustworthy EU trustworthy guidelines, and there's a societal and environmental well-being. So let me go to the next slide. Okay, well-being can be conceptualized in many different ways. For example, you can think about it on different levels, like individual level, local level, when you think about local communities, but also on a national level and global level too. You can use different measurement traditions, different methods, different indicators. For example, you can focus on subjective well-being, like feeling of happiness or life satisfaction. But you can also use objective indicators like concentrate on income or health. You can have different approaches. For example, as far as subjective indicators are concerned, you can sample emotions in real time, or you can have some sort of summary judgment on life satisfaction. And also you can think of well-being being conceptualized in different disciplines. It can be a subject of research of psychology and economics and ethics and political philosophy as well. Now, I will focus on national well-being, and this is a concept whose increasing popularity is visible, especially in the late 2000s. Why? Because then it was assumed, I think, because of the global crisis, it was at least some of the reasons for that. It was assumed that the purpose of life is happiness, and why not GDP? Because GDP as a proxy for measuring the quality of life can lead to undesirable externalities, undesirable consequences for communities, for climate, for the planet. Today we realize it quite well, but I think then it was still something new. So GDP is not a sufficient tool for governments to improve their actions. And for example, as an example of guidelines produced around this change, we can refer to the OECD issues, OECD guidelines on well-being. Now, the concept of well-being is nothing new. We can refer to Jeremy Bentham here and the utilitarian tradition, but also to Aristotle and his and the idea of human flourishing. But let's concentrate on the contemporary approaches to well-being. As I mentioned before, it's one of the main requirements in both OECD and European Union guidelines. As you can see here, it's the sixth requirement, which reads: the broader society, other sentient beings, and the environment should be considered as stakeholders throughout the AI system's life cycle. But how to make it work? One can refer to the Siena Ethics by Design proposal. It will be discussed in more details by Dr. Brent Dano today, later on. But I would like to refer to a couple of general instructions and more detailed things very quickly. So the Ethics by Design proposal requires developers, AI developers, to identify who the end users are and other possible stakeholders before constructing the system, in order to identify the risks and, if necessary, to mitigate them. But if you go further into details, you will find some more specific information about the well-being operationalization, but they will not be enough to effectively fulfill this requirement. So you need to refer to something more detailed. For example, it can be the IEEE standard on assessing the impact of autonomous and intelligent systems on human well-being, which includes 12 specific domains with which you can measure well-being. For example, psychological well-being, education, economy, environment, government, and etc. Some of these domains include further subdomains. For example, the domain number 4, community, covers areas like sense of belonging, community participation, social support, etc. And it is stressed that well-being should not be reduced to a single dimension. This is why the standard comprises well-being indicators from a variety of sources that capture impacts in a variety of domains. I think this standard, whose aim is to allow well-being impact assessment, can well complement the Siena Ethics by Design approach. And now I would like to refer to the fact that well-being measurement was a huge part of the philosophical, political, and economic discussions in the past decades, and it was very often criticized. For example, with arguments concerning the methods of measurement. You can think, for example, of the experience sampling approach, where individuals are asked to put a number to a feeling, and then those numbers are compared across different people. It caused controversies, and it was not so obvious that it's the best way, optimal way to measure well-being. Another argument against this sort of utilitarian approach was non-objectivity of the science of well-being as such, because it is value-laden normative discipline. So you can find this sort of objections in John Rawls' The Theory of Justice, for example. You can also find different problems identified, for example, by Amartya Sen, who said that when you think about welfarism and utilitarianism, the problem is that evaluation in those domains pays no direct attention to any of the different non-utility features. So, for example, Sen seems to present possible limitations of well-being quantification, which are resulting from important contextual information being missed from the picture that you try to reach. And sorry for skipping the slides so quickly, but I realize I don't have too much time. I would like to focus on the final slides, because I think it's absolutely crucial to link the ideas I mentioned a while ago with the contemporary situation in the AI domain. And I think I will refer to Kate Crawford's book Atlas of AI here, because I think it points the problem pretty well. So I'll begin with saying that to fulfill the well-being requirements that are included in the guidelines on trustworthy AI, we not only have to delve into different standards and indicators, but we also remember to adapt the multi-dimensional perspective. Why this is crucial? It's crucial because AI itself is based on algorithms and quantification of reality. So there is a link between the methods of well-being quantification and some sort of simplification of reality, and the AI itself and its methods. And as Kate Crawford puts it in her book, she says that making choices about which information feeds AI systems to produce new classifications is a powerful moment of decision-making, but who gets to choose and on what basis? And this is something that reminds me one of the Rawls objections, when he would say that decision of metrics that we use, this is itself an ethical decision. So another warning that is formulated by Crawford is that the quantifying approach itself is a problem, we can say. So this approach is visible, as I said, not only in today's algorithmization of reality, but also forms the basis of the simplistic moral algebra that is aimed at measuring and comparing well-being in the world and managing it. So I would say that we should not definitely give up attempts aimed at well-being quantification with regard to AI. We need to try to do our best to fulfill these requirements that are included in the trustworthy guidelines, but this is the absolute fundamental condition is that this requirement cannot be dealt with mechanically. So we need to have different measures, different approaches and metrics, and adapt them according to a specific context. How this can be done, that's a good illustration of this approach can be one of the couple of models that are being developed by Zofia Dzik from the Humanites Institute. You can see on the right, coherent leadership model and the loop model. These are good examples. I won't go into details because I don't have time for that, but you can contact Zofia Dzik and discuss it if you like. The issue here is that you need to have this multi-dimensional approach. And I would like to also put stress on the fact that the demand for ethical competences here are quite high, and I believe that thorough understanding of AI ethics will be crucial for the sensible operationalization of the requirements included in the trustworthy AI guidelines. I don't know if I have a minute left.
Yes, but Dr. Chojnowski, we have some problems with your presentation. We have a frozen of the slide, one slide, and we cannot see how you can. Where are you exactly when you are?
Okay, so which slide is it?
We heard everything, but
okay.
we have no react with.
Let me
presentation.
Maybe I will share my screen again. Okay.
Yes, please.
Can you now? Has anything changed right now?
No.
No. Okay. So I will try. I will try to stop my sharing.
Okay.
Can you see me now?
Yes. So
okay.
Please
So
share
I'll
it
try
again.
to share it again. Okay. Let's try now. Is it working?
We have to wait a little bit. Yes, we have a black screen now.
I don't know what it is. Okay,
Okay,
I think
so
that I
you
believe that I can put it in words. You don't need to see it. But I would like to try to answer the question that was included in the title of my talk. So, well-being quantified. Is it a viable goal? Is it an attainable ideal, or maybe a technocratic misconception? And I would like to say that all these options are true depending on the context and on our decisions. So I would put it in this way: it is a technocratic misconception when we think that with technology we can capture the essence of human well-being by reducing the whole richness of the experience, of the human experience, to a bunch of psychometric and behavioral data that is gathered in us. Of course, it can also be an attainable ideal when we believe that well-being can be perfectly observed and measured on both subjective and objective levels, and then compared and effectively governed and managed. But it can also be a viable goal if we realize that when quantified, well-being is always only a proxy for the real world, for the real experiences, and that we should be very careful with it when making decisions. So it's up to us which approach we choose. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you for a chance to present my talk, and I'm handing over to Eva. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chojnowski, for your speaking. And now we have time for our question and answer session. So I encourage all of the participants to apply, and also you can write on questions on the chat. We have the first one, I think. It was a question for Dr. Ineke Malsch. So did you encourage any particularly troublesome case to ethical access? If it's possible, could you tell us something about it?
Thank you. Yes, that's a good question. Well, actually, in our project, we just focused on applications of nanomaterials. So in general, that is not the most ethically sensitive issue. So using nanomaterials in different kinds of products and doing research on their properties. I looked at, I tested the tools on different case studies, like using nanomaterials in wastewater remediation in a developing country, applying nanomaterials in solar panels, in tires, in dentistry, citrus greening, and of course, as I now presented, sharing nano safety data. And I think in all cases, the expected benefits of applications were more stronger than the risks. But the idea is also not to just identify very risky, ethically sensitive cases, but more to sort of come up with recommendations for how to prevent the negative impacts and stimulate more the benefits of nanomaterials. But the thing is also, I started with my own estimates of the different issues in each case. And then in some cases, I had the opportunity to actually validate my own estimates by asking researchers or stakeholders to also use the tools and come up with their estimates. And then the cases I tried, most of the researchers or stakeholders had higher estimates of the risk. So if I would say it would be minor or moderate issues, then they would think that they were medium or even high or very high. So that's also something. And I think it will be interesting to analyze in future projects where these different assessments of the importance of different issues comes from. If it's just different understanding of the benchmark for each significance of the issue, or if it's more related to different views from different kinds of stakeholders about how important a particular issue is in real life. So there's still a lot more to do in trying to come up with a useful tool.
Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Ineke. I would like to ask you about your future plans of this methodology. Do you plan apply to this methodology to next project? What plan do you have now?
Yes, I would like to. At the moment, not well. I am involved in other projects, but not where I actually have the task to apply this tool again. In any case, I'm so in this case of ethics of sharing nano-safety data, I'm planning to develop the paper further and submit it to a peer-reviewed journal. And also last week I had the opportunity to get some feedback from participants in a conference on nanotechnology, society and environment in Brazil, which I still have to integrate in the paper. So there's a publication is coming up, but yeah, I would like to apply it to more case studies. So.
Okay, so we're waiting for its publication, and I encourage everyone to comment our today's speaker, and you can also raise your hand to come to get some question. Okay, we have another one on the chat. A question for Dr. Chojnowski. Do you think there is a high risk that simplicity approach will be well-being quantification will treat the realization of trustworthy AI requirements?
Okay, so thank you for the question. I believe that the simplification is a problem that will threaten all the requirements, not only well-being measurement, but all the requirements included in the guidelines on trustworthy AI, because it all depends on the approach we take towards the operationalization of those requirements. And this is realized by the authors of the guidelines. They refer to this situation, to this problem explicitly when they say that all the requirements included in the guidelines should not be treated as something to be solved in a mechanical way, you know, like a checklist that you can pick and say, okay, that's done. So this very simplistic, I would say, compliance in a very basic sense, like something as I said, mechanical, something very simplistic. So this approach towards the trustworthy AI, but also as trustworthy AI is an umbrella term covering ethics, but also law and technical robustness. So this approach towards, for example, AI Act requirements that to a certain extent are the same as the when included in the European Commission guidelines on trustworthy AI, ethical guidelines, ethical requirements. So I believe that this simplistic approach can cause a lot of harm to realizing the true potential of those requirements. So it's not only about well-being, it's also about every aspect of the principles and requirements included in those guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question. Please, Patricia Didik.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your presentation. I have a question, I think, for everyone. What do you think we can do? What else we can do to make ethics more important in the business? Because in the scientific world, we talk about ethics all the time, but what we can do to make it more important that other businesses and other area look at ethics and think about how important it is to think about it and make projects with ethical rules.
Who is to answer the question? Okay, if there's no one else who would like to start, I will start, because I believe I can give a very quick and simple answer to that. I believe very deeply that there is a link I just mentioned between law and ethics as far as the trustworthy AI is concerned. So we should think about ethics not as an abstract discipline, but as something that can be very, very useful and necessary to operationalize the requirements, high-level abstract requirements. So ethics can provide tools necessary to put requirements into practice. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else want to comment and answer this question?
Yes, I think from my experience, especially the European Commission is very helpful in sort of stimulating mainstreaming ethics in research projects, because now also researchers whose project is funded have to, in some cases, engage an ethicist to guide them in addressing ethical issues. Of course, this is usually it's a very simplified interpretation of ethics, so it's more related to compliance with ethical guidelines. But at the same time, it gives the opportunity to also address more future-oriented ethical issues. So I think this may also help increasing the awareness of researchers, also in natural sciences, of the benefits of discussing ethics for their own research, for improving the quality of their research.
Thank you very much. And we have also a question for Professor Piera Di Martino about this gray goose scenario. Can you tell us something more about it?
Yeah, actually, is the
It's more controversial.
yeah, more controversial. I don't said my opinion, of course, about that. My opinion is that we can never stop our research. We cannot limit our research because we are, when we are scientists, by definition, we are curious, of course. But it's important to be aware about possible consequences of our research. Sometimes the achievement of our research are not in our hands because it depends for how they can be or will be used by other users. You can see, for example, wars. You can see other achievements. For example, the nuclear bomb of Hiroshima was a consequence of a research, and probably the inventor was not aware about the next use. Of course, for a researcher, it's very difficult to for an ethical researcher, it's very difficult to stop the investigation and to be curious. But it's necessary to understand by now possible consequences. So be aware about what we are doing can be of some consequences on the environment, on the health, in any field. And it's important that we are starting to think about that. Also, I guess that opportunities offered by Horizon of method of financing the researchers by the European Commission that pushes the researcher to establish a discussion at the different levels to establish a discussion with stakeholders, but also with the public, to share results and also to be aware of the existence of other fields. So the possibility to investigate or to envisage the use of some results in different fields is of paramount importance. So we need, we researchers in different fields, not directly involved in philosophy, for example, in laws, be aware of the context and the very complex context that we are living today.
Yeah, thank you. And now I think I have to say stop here and thank you all for joining our first session, plenary session. And I also encourage you to join the discussion of the chat. You can also write your comments, questions all time. And also encourage you to complete our evaluation surveys. The link will be on our chat. And now we have time for a little break, 15 minutes break. And after that, I will also invite you to the next session. It will start at 11:45. So thank you very much for that, all of the speakers and all of the participants of the first session, and enjoy your break.